In the Winter Sky, a short story written by John McGregor. Published 10 years after What the Sky Sees, In the Winter Sky is rewritten from the female perspective of Joanna. There is a great deal of symbolism in the story, which is what I'm of course going to go over, and what it represents. The first symbol of the story, I think, is time, or the passage of time. It talks about what she knew about George when she was 17 and what she knows about him now. When she was 17, he didn't talk much, much like he doesn't talk much in the present, but that he had nice hair. And, well, in the present, he now has a bald patch which he refused to protect from the sun. I think this tells us that time has passed, like without saying it outright, like not just a few years, but it's of course a symbol of like a good passage of time. Um, it's contrasted between that nice hair, which is like a symbol of like youth and like virility, fertility, with hair loss, which is associated with aging. It's like it's a symbol of that passage of time, that they're not the same people they were back then. Another symbol that I thought about while reading it was adventure and escape. Think about the road next to the ditch, B1098. It's described as being perfectly straight, almost like monotone or rigid. Um, Joanna talking about, and George, about agriculture school, like the future. Um, very rigid and almost emotionless, of course. Um, passionless, one could also say. Joanna includes in her second round of poems the phrase, he came back for her, the taste of like he was passing through the sky, to go somewhere and to do something. Like that yearning for freedom, for not just freedom, but also like adventure and something new and passion. In Joanna, he almost finds escape, like escape from his same routine of life. And the same for Joanna. Like it's something new for them to kind of latch onto, much like the sky. Uh, when George takes his father's keys in the nights to see her, it's described as him almost passing through the sky, passing through freedom and like an open expanse and like brightness, as the sky is later described. It's described as so pure and bright that it hurts to look at. And the sky is so expansive that if you look straight up, you'll have to grab something for fear of falling. Of course, it's important to also talk about the sky. Um, when George strikes a man with his truck, he tries to reach up and grab this guy to pull himself out of harm's way, almost saying like the sky is almost like an escape or an illusion. It represents throughout the story like a continuation of good times. As long as that blue sky is up there, things go well for Joanna and George. It's a never-ending horizon bathing the fields. This contrasts, of course, with symbolism of the fog, which Joanna describes in her poem as alien and foreign, illusionary. It is within the fog that they find the body eventually, the man digging in the field, and eventually the police and surveyors. It's almost as if like the fog pierces that perfect bubble that Joanna and George live in, that it kind of seeps in with the real world. Because of course that blue sky is just an illusion. It allows them to kind of hide beneath it, like to avoid their past. The mist goes away near the end of the story and the blue sky returns, but George and Joanna can't hide anymore. Even though the mist is gone, that illusion of everything being fine has been shattered. George also, when he was driving into the fog, said that his father and wife were fine, which is obviously a lie. George is to convince himself every night that his father is doing okay, and he isn't. He was lying to himself, and he drives in the fog and comes out the other side, and he then realizes that is to come to terms with his past and the truth of the present. But like he's no longer able to hide, like deny, um, like the truths of his situation and like the inevitability of his past actions and the inevitability of death. Another symbol, of course, I suppose you could phrase is memento mori, like the inevitability of death. He saves his father's life, and he talks to his father all the time, and although his father isn't the same man he was before, but George would like to think he is. Almost feeding into his denial as George just can't seem to come to truth with the realities of life. Joanna watches George reassure himself that his father is well, even though he so clearly isn't. That his father doesn't have long for this world. But George just can't see that, or can't come to terms with that, and can't, I suppose, get his best life, or live freely, much like with the man he had killed, because he can't come to terms with the truth. George almost lives in his own world at some points in the story. So yeah, those are the symbols I could find for, well, I could think of for In the Winter Sky. Thank you for listening, and have a fantastic day.